Okay, so last week I talked about like sets, reps, volume, how to train for strength and size, and I just feel it was very scattered. There's a lot. It was. It's been a while since I've talked about these things, so um, as I was giving the talk last week, I was almost overwhelmed, and I can't imagine those that watched it and participated. I'm being overwhelmed because I'm so far removed from being. I've been doing this for this is my career, right? So it's this knowledge and like the things that I've learned when I first started, training when I was 20 years ago. I forgot like how new some of this language can be and how writing a program. But today I'm a little bit more prepared. I'm going to go through how to set up templates, your training, and like some different thought processes. And then for everybody that does watch this and everyone that's here tonight, I'm going to give you a copy of this template. So everything I'm going to do tonight and walk through and how to fill it out, you're going to get a copy. So both of you that are here tonight, I will send it to you, but I'm not going to give it to those that watch it until they watch it to the end. And I'm going to have like a code word that people have to tell me so they can get their template so I know they watched it. Okay. Um, just because this is a very big learning component here, this is teaching, this is the fundamentals of programming, and how you can write your own. And I feel that if you watch this and based with the template, you'll maybe never need a coach to write your program again. I feel like this stuff should be accessible to everybody, so I just want to give it away to everybody. So let me go ahead and share screen. Numbers. Okay. Can everybody see this? Words, Josh, you see that?
Looks good, man.
Yes,
Right.
sir.
Cool.
Yep.
I hate being the guy that reads off a screen and definitions. I hate those kind of presentations, but I'm going to be that guy for this presentation here, just so we can have we can agree upon the terms and what these words mean. So when it comes to periodization, it's just the sequencing of training variables to elicit adaptations. So there's an art and a science to writing a program and sequencing each phase of the program to elicit certain adaptations. Okay. Programming is literally writing the program for periodization. It's putting everything on paper and writing it out. When we talk about writing a program, we look at a few things. We look at intensity and volume, okay, and usually those come in the form of sets, reps, and weight. Traditionally, intensity is just the amount of resistance presented during a movement, okay? So a squat for 335 pounds for one has a higher intensity than a squat that's 315 by 11. Yes, the reps were more in the 315 by 11, but the resistance is higher in the 325. I think that's what I said. Relative intensity is what most of us are familiar with. That's how close we are to failure. So these are typically known as reps in reserve, RPE. When someone goes, how hard was that? Well, they're usually asking you like, what was the relative intensity of the movement? I usually say like, hey, was it hard, kind of hard, sort of hard? It gives me an idea of where they're at from a weight jump call. Volume. Volume is just the amount of work during a rep set, session, week or month or phase. And it's really just sets times reps times weight. Sets is the number of times, like the number of rounds you have for an exercise. Reps is the number of times you perform that exercise per round. Okay. Microcycle is a week long. It's like a Monday to Monday. So that Monday to Monday is what we call a microcycle. A mesocycle is, this is supposed to be a sequence of microcycles. Microcycle, so mesocycle is like 3 to 6 microcycles. It's a phase. I call it a phase. 3 to 6 weeks. It's where they have a certain goal for those 3 to 6 weeks, whether it's get stronger hamstrings, stronger quads. It could be very general. It could be very specific. And then a macro cycle is just training blocks of range. These are your mesocycles that we train long term. They're months to even years. Okay. Training block is 3 mesocycles. So I like to reduce these blocks down to, like, we have a hypertrophy block, they have a general strength block, they have a peaking block. These are traditional terms that they use. So what that means is that we would focus on putting size for an extended amount of time, or strength for an extended amount of time. The way I approach programming is we're always kind of training everything at once: speed, strength, power, size. And then the phase is what determines what we're going to give attention to for 3 to 6 weeks. So if I need to put some size on in certain spots, we would focus on that for 3 to 6 weeks. If I need to get stronger, but I don't typically do like, hey, we're just focused on strength for 6 to 8 weeks, and then we're just focused on size for 6 to 8 weeks. This falls in line with like that concurrent and conjugate style of training, that we can train everything at the same time. I think the new thing is like vertical integration is what they call it. The new kids are calling it. But back in my day, it's concurrent, meaning we can train multiple modalities at the same time. Like, strength works really well with power and size, but we can also train endurance aspects because they're not competing for each other, right? Deload phase, this is just a week long of light sessions. Its purpose is to reduce fatigue. I don't do a true deload phase in my training. What you do with yours, you have to figure out what's best for you. But we can take a lighter week by manipulating volume and sets. Two really important things that we have to consider with training is the overload principle. So it's really any stimulus that's going to cause the body to have to adapt, right? So if you think about hypertrophy training, like putting size on like the bicep, we're using the weight to cause stress and disrupt homeostasis. We're essentially breaking down muscle tissue. And then in order to adapt, the body has to repair itself and to be stronger so that the next time it encounters the weight that caused the damage, it's not going to cause damage. That's why you need to go up in weight or change the sets and the volumes, because we need to cause an overload stimulus to cause the body to adapt. And then specificity, training should tax and stimulate the underlying systems of the task. Specific training that trains the systems responsible for generating movement. So if you're getting ready for powerlifting meet, you should probably squat, bench, deadlift with a straight bar, right? And this is training the muscular system, endurance system, or cardiovascular, connective tissue, neurological. They all, for strength, there's certain requirements. For hypertrophy, there's certain requirements. For endurance, there's certain requirements. Okay. 2 aspects we want to look at. We want the minimal viable program. So when I'm writing a program for somebody, this is where we always start. It's the simplest program that you can write based on what you know up to this point that hits all the qualities you've deemed important. So what's the minimum amount of work that I have to do that hits all the qualities that I want to train, whether it's speed, strength, size, endurance? And then the next thing we look to add to, so part of like the minimal is where we start is bare minimum. And if we're making progress and we're making adaptations, then we keep doing what we're doing. But sometimes we need to add more volume to, elicit certain adaptations. So we look at maximal recoverable volume. It's the amount of training that you can essentially recover and benefit from. So, 3 sets of 10 might be all I can recover from, but, Josh can recover 8 sets of 10, no problem, right? That's would be his maximum. How much volume can Josh take on and still perform, recover, and adapt? Okay. So these are kind of my guidelines for, so in conjugate concurrent, we call, they have max effort training, which is moving a heavy load for a single rep. Then you have submax. So max effort, a true max effort workout is hitting your main movement for your first movement for a heavy single. I do more sub max work because most people I train aren't power lifters. So we'll do sub maxes anywhere from, 3 to 5 reps with no misses. That'll be 75 to 90% or an RPE of 7 to 9 for that day. So that's your intensity. Your percentage is always your intensity. And we have to remember that 90% on, so say you're squatting today at 90% for a single, and then you squat for 90% for a single next week, it could be a different weight. So 90% isn't going to be the same every day. That's why with percentages, we have to be careful because your 1 rep max from a year ago might not be the same that it is today. So that's why Wendler did in 531, he took 93% of his 1 rep max, and that was his working max. But anyways, so how I would do it, I do 3-week cycles. If we're doing like heavy work, right, we would just week 1 work up to a heavy 5, week 2 work up to a heavy 3 to 5, and then week 3 work up to a heavy 3. Now, what does that look like? It's what's heavy to you that day. Since most people aren't training for powerlifting, heavy enough for that day for you to be like, yeah, that was heavy. So those are like the guidelines for max effort, sets and reps for dynamic effort or fast and explosive. So science and practice of strength training says dynamic effort is moving suboptimal weight fast. There's no sets or reps or guidelines. So I feel it's very open-ended on what this means for sets and reps, but usually the weights are anywhere from like 30 to 70% of your 1 rep max. We're moving suboptimal weight fast, and the intention is to train the nervous system to fire quicker, to hit some higher threshold motor units. The percentages that I list here, these are kind of taken from some conjugate and Westside stuff, but they're not set in stone. And that's what we have to remember with this training stuff, that nothing's set in stone. I mean, there's certain principles that we abide by, right? Like specificity and overload. And, we know that to train strength, we have to train 75 to 90%. But, when it comes to, you can play around with things, and there's a lot of different things we can play around with. And then the third is your repetition effort. So we have max effort, dynamic effort, and then repetition effort. Repetition effort is going to be your hypertrophy work. Traditional repetition effort is usually taken to failure, but it's 2 to 5 sets at 8 to 15 reps per set. Okay. Let's talk athletics. So right here is my basic lifting template. This is my minimal viable program for my own training, and I've been using this for, I don't know, close to a decade. Hide these rows. So these top 3 rows here I called it like the 3 and out program. What are the 3 minimum things I have to do in a day to my MVP, right? When I'm busy, I only have time for 3 movements, and these are what it is. And then the rows under it, those are like optional or if I have time for them. So the top 3, I do full body every day. I believe life is kind of happens full body, and it happens outside the gym, and I kind of train the same. I train my athletes with a similar template. So on the left side, this column here, it says DEMERE. That coincides with dynamic effort, max effort, and repetition effort, which we were talking about on this previous tab. So dynamic effort is the fast, explosive stuff, right? So I always put it in the beginning, gets the nervous system ready. Fast movements require the nervous system when it's the freshest. So, or to like train speed work. Yes, we can train like speed endurance and do it later in the workout. But if I'm looking to just train like pure fastness, I usually put it in the beginning. So what total means is like more of a hip dominant or horizontal pelvic movement. This is your deadlifts. This can be Olympic lifts. This can be throws. This can be sprint. Anything that involves a total body. Now lower is typically a knee dominant or vertical pelvis for me. So those are going to be like your squats and your single leg movements that target more of a knee dominant exercise. I have like an issue, like we call a hip dominant movement, we call it a hinge, but then we call a knee dominant movement just knee dominant, but the knee is a hip joint, and I think it's confusion. Anything that's a horizontal pelvis, I consider a total body. Anything that's a vertical pelvis, I consider lower. And then the third movement is upper. And then these just rotate each day. So day 1 is total lower upper. Day 2 is lower upper total. And then day 3 is upper total lower, following that dynamic effort, max effort, repetition effort type rotation. And then I just add in repetition effort. Like this would be any hypertrophy work, right? The last 2 things are kind of my weaknesses, for that phase. So let me show you kind of how to put it all together. So I always like to look at what's the focus for a phase. So for me, a phase is like, 3 to 6 weeks. What's the focus? What am I trying to, so like right now I'm getting back into things. So it's a little bit more high volume, getting some reps in, getting my training endurance back. Phase length, 3 to 6 weeks. Thoughts or ideas I'm working on. So things I'm playing with, ideas that I've had that I've written down that I want to try. Movements I want to play with, like, hey, what happens if I do this or try this when I do this? Experimenting with sets, reps, rest periods, right? Been doing this since I was like 10. I've always experimenting. It's what's cool about what we do, right? And then how am I going to measure progress? What does it look like? How do I know it's working? So the first thing we want to do is we want to plan out the week, right? What does the microcycle look like? So how many days a week can you actually commit to lifting? So usually for me, it's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but this time I'm moving to every day. But let's just say, so we'll lift on Monday, lift on Wednesday, and then we lift on Friday. Okay. I would also put in like my walk. Walking would be like almost daily. And then human movement. So usually I'll take 10 to 15 minutes just to move my spine, my hips, and any other areas that I feel are sticky or, they're a little bit sore the next day than they should be from training. So that's how I would set up my week, right? We lift 3 days a week, and then the other days I'm moving every day and walking every day. I feel you should train every day. And training doesn't always have to mean, the weight room. So now I want to start filling in, what are the lifts I want to do for this phase? So we'll stick to dynamic effort. We'll do max effort, repetition effort here. And we'll still use this same template from the other page. So you guys can kind of see how I start putting this together. So once you have like these templates like this, you're set for life. Like it's just a matter of plug and play, right? So this could be like a vertical jump. I'm going to do, a front squat for max effort. For upper body, I'm going to do dumbbell row. Total body can be, an RDL. High rep spine, this could be lateral flexion. And then high rep, whatever. So for me, I'm looking at joints. I'm not putting on size, but I know training the joints through their ranges will put size on to my muscles. So like what joints are giving me issues from like my hikes, moving with the kid, when I wake up in the morning, what's stiffer than normal is then what I'll address with these last supersets. So, this would just be some shoulder work, and then my ankle. And this can be anywhere from 2 to 3 exercises for 1 to 2 sets. It's just getting some work done on the joint. Or if you're trying to put size on, same thing, you can put biceps and calves or something, wherever your weak points are. So day 2, dynamic effort would be lower. We can do another jump here, but we could do like a broad jump. Max effort for your upper, we could do a floor press, work up to like a heavy 3. Total here again would be some type of single leg hinge or RDL. This would be a lower body, so we do like a split squat, and then rotation, and then the same hips, shoulders for me. And then same thing here. This would be throws. Total, this would be trap bar deadlift. Lower, we would do like another split squat variation. Upper, we would row, and then you can just kind of see flexion and extension. So now those are kind of like how the movements are for that 3-week full body. So now we can start to look at the days, like the individual day. So day one, if I'm going to do, vertical jump, which is a dynamic effort movement. So let's do a box jump. Yeah, it doesn't matter. So there's a couple ways for like the athletic work, and I included it here in the template for if you're not going to do like lifting dynamic effort work. I feel jumps, throws, and sprints are also dynamic effort. So like throws and jumps, we do 3 to 5 different throws. We do three to 5 sets of 5 reps. Okay. So you can either do 3 to 5 jumps, or you can just do 1 jump. And I kind of let this be based on feel. So, hey, do 1 jump, get anywhere from 15 to 25 reps. If you feel good, let's add a different jumping variation. Like we'll do vertical jumps, we'll do box jumps. Kind of base it off feel, right? If you start to feel like dog shit when you're doing like jumps and throws, then, we're losing the intent of being fast with suboptimal weight. So just we could do 3 by 5 here, 4 by 5, and then 5 by 5. You can switch that around, right? You just play around with what works, right? So, this could be 5 by 5 on a lower box. This could be 4 by 5 on a slightly higher box. And then this could be 5 by 3 with an even higher box, right? So the intensity is going up as the volume is going down. Intense emphasis is dynamic effort. Number 2, so we said front squat. You can run like a normal like 5-3-1. I think it's a great thing to run. So you got 5 by 5, 5 by 3, and then 5 by 5. Count 5, 3. 5, 3, 1, 1, 1. The repetition effort, dumbbell row. So I'd probably start higher on the volume here, and then reduce the volume as kind of the weeks go on. Again, this bodybuilding hypertrophy stuff during the first week, as this is more high volume, lower intensity, but as we get into week 3, the intensity goes up, the volume will go down. You can't have both high volume and high intensity at the same time, or otherwise you'll burn out. So you have to be strategic with how you use it and when you use it, right? So bodybuilding, you're going to have more volume, lower intensity. Strength work, you're going to have more intensity, lower volume. RDL, follow with something similar. We do 4 by 12, 4 by 10, 3 by 8. So when it comes to the numbers, there's really obviously higher reps, you're going to hit hypertrophy. Lower reps, you're going to hit, strength. So the range is for hypertrophy is anywhere from 6 to 15, right? So you just play around with what works for you. Lateral flexion, which is spine. I always do high reps on these. But since we're doing a heavy front squat here, we'll probably won't go as heavy on the spine work. So 4 by 15, 4 by 20, and then we would drop it to like a 3 by, 15, right? And then this would be hips, right? So now we can see like I would hit, if I was putting size on for my hips, that would be glutes, right? So I want to make sure I'm training abductors, adductors, not just the superficial muscles that give me my hips, right? So this can only be adductor isos, superset with standing on 1 foot. And then shoulders, we could do internal rotation with dumbbell, and then external rotation with dumbbell. Right, and then so same thing with sets and reps, isos, it would just be till fail. So I would usually drop these down as the weeks go on because I'm not going to make too much of an improvement. But I would probably run these 4 exercises for 6 weeks. And then I would run these for 3 weeks, and then I would just change all of these movements here in the top what is that, 5. Those would change in the next 3 weeks, but I would keep these 4 bottom ones the same for 6 weeks. Let's see. Okay, so here's how to run a 4-day a week program with 3 days a week of lifting. So let me explain what I mean. Okay, so this is like a upper lower split. This is more of a traditional split that most people are probably accustomed to. So how we would set it up using like the max effort, repetition effort, dynamic effort is day 1. So we would do 3 day ones essentially in a 4-week split. Okay, so here's day 1 here, day 1 here, and then day 1 here. So here you can see this would be like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, week 1, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, week 2, 3, and 4. So, and then here's the days. Here's day 1, 2, 3, 4. This gives us 4 weeks of programming or a month. Well, essentially 4 weeks, right? Every month's different. And then you're hitting each workout 3 times within those 4 weeks. The other way to set it up would just be like this. This would just be your normal 4-day split with a week. Okay. This is the one I use for a lot of my power lifters, is this 3-day a week rotate, like snaked 4-day, right? So if it's lower body, we're just working on lower body, right? So if our emphasis here is max effort repetition, so it pretty much would be max effort, sub max, and then repetition here. Okay, so squat would be a max effort lower movement. And then I would just, with this template, I would just copy this and then go paste it on day 1/2 lower max effort, but I would take this movement out here to deadlift. And then squat. So when I rotate like max effort movements, I usually rotate them weekly. Just because that's kind of how I was brought up. So every time you go into like your lower body max effort days, this is just me personally, I just rotate between squat and like a deadlift variation. So then sub max is that you would work up to like a kind of heavy 5. So if I'm doing squat first, I would do a deadlift variation second, and then your repetition effort work is going to be any of your accessory work to bring up those movements or put size on. This would be squat. Let's see, deadlift. So in your dynamic effort repetition effort days, you can either do your dynamic effort work with barbell stuff, so moving suboptimal weight fast, or you can do throws, jumps, and sprints, which is what I tend to do with most people. If you're a lifter, we are going to do more of like the traditional West Side speed work. There's 2 camps in it, and people say it doesn't work, other people say it does work. Try it, run it. So those sets and reps I put on sheet number on notes 2. These are the traditional like setups for speed work with a barbell. Like deadlift, there's always 1 rep, lower was always 2 reps, or squat, and upper was 3. So yeah, this is upper body. We would do throws, and then this would just be like a fluff and buff for the upper body day. I may even do like a sub max movement here, which is like work up to a heavy 5 and whatever. So you can even do like an incline bench, and then everything else would be fluff and buff. So we run that again here. I wouldn't do incline bench. You could do like a Z press or a floor press. Again, it's going to depend on what you're training for. Like if you want to be well-rounded, just keep moving the movements around. If you're on max effort days and sub-max, just keep trying and training different things, right? Like if this squat here is like a back squat, don't train it again until like you start this next phase over, right? You can see if everything's working. So if you test the true max on your back squat here, don't run it again for another, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. So the start of that fifth week, that'll help tell you if your programming's doing what it's supposed to, if you're trying to get like your 1 rep max up. But I always like to rotate lifts. We get strong in the positions we train. So if you're not getting ready for a meet, you don't have to straight bar, squat, bench, and deadlift. Cool. And then here's dynamic effort, repetition, effort lower. So same kind of setup as your upper body. So I would probably do a jump. And then the sub max would probably be a squat, since that's what we did here. We'll just train that twice this week. Again, repetition effort. And then max effort upper, effort, sub max. So when it comes to max effort on my upper, I rotate between partial range and full range. So if we're getting ready for like powerlifting, I would do like a full range of motion bench variation. And then the next time I come into this upper max effort, we would do like a partial range, because most people fail halfway up or off the chest. So we want to strengthen where the weaknesses typically are. But then I would have that second movement would be the opposite. So if we did full range as a first movement, the second movement would be partial, vice versa. If partial was first, we would do full range. So then you can start seeing like how things come together here for everything. And then we would run it. I'm not going to fill in like all the movements for you, but like these, the repetition is just going to be what are the main joints involved with the movement you're trying to get stronger at. So for squatting, it's going to be knees and hips, glutes, hamstrings, calves, adductors, right? Same with bodybuilding, right? If lower body, you want to bring up your quads, you want to bring up your hamstrings. It's the same idea. It's one we're looking at joints, the other is muscles, because the two different competitions. So here's what I'm currently running. I have a 3-day lifting template with a 3-day athleticism template. So I lift, explosive day, lift, explosive, explosive. And you can kind of see how they work off of this. So this time I'm running like day 1 is all heavy, with day 2 being all explosive and day 3 being all reps. And these reps are like 2 sets of like 10, because day 3 on the athleticism is more like higher nervous system. So it's just sprints, jumps, and throws. I want my nervous system fresh for that. Here's another way you can write like that. My main template, you have like a heavy day, explosive reps, but then the following week it switches. Right. So day 1 is total would be heavy week 1, but then day 1, week 2, your total is explosive. So your setups for this stuff is like, it's unlimited, right? And if Sean were to present, or even Sam, they would maybe present their templates in a different way. It doesn't mean one's right over the other. It doesn't mean that it's just what we found has worked for us. And it's just continuous trial error. It's continuous tweaking. As long as you follow the same underlying principles of strength training and hypertrophy training. I didn't talk about like any conditioning or anything, but I would put on my non-lifting days. So if I'm lifting Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday would be low intensity, steady state to build my aerobic capacity. It'd be about 30, 45 minutes. Before or after doing like movement stuff. Lifting template, explosive template, human movement. Cool. And again, my way isn't right. It's just, this is the way I'm not, this is not the way I've always done it, because what I literally wrote here on the screen right now is like a different way I've ran this recently. I didn't run it this way a couple years ago. I'm running it with a couple current clients to see what the results come from it. It's what's cool about, again, we can just try different things. Hey, I have an idea, let's try it. Like this 3-day split with like a snake, or sorry, 4-day split that snakes every week, this you can run forever. You'll never run out of ideas or options. You can see I don't do a deload week because as soon as we start a new phase, the volume and intensity it's going to drop. So if I'm changing every week one, the volume it changes. So I traditionally don't need a true deload unless I'm coming off of a competition. So like this 4-day split, done over 2 weeks, I think is one of the better if you're trying to do like an upper lower. You're not going to overtrain because you're getting plenty of rest in between the days. And like even if you did like a Monday, Thursday, Saturday, like you just have a lot of options with these different styles, and they're a little bit more forgiving. And as I get older, I don't have, and it's the other thing with the kid and the business and just where you have other time commitments getting it in. So that's why, I don't have time for a warm up. I don't have time for conditioning. That's why I do my warm ups on the days in betweens that I lift. So like I can literally just go to the gym and train. I don't have to spend 30 minutes on a warm up. I'm there to train and we get going. Like today, it was plyos and we got into it. So questions. I hope that was a little easier than last week's. You might have to watch it a couple times to see how I did everything. Let's go. How far time is it? Yeah, so if you made it this far in the recording, the time now is 7:41. So text me a message on Discord that says 7:41, and I will email you this template. I'll put it in a Google Sheet. You are free to do what you want with it, but this is a lifetime's worth of work here. But you'll have it. You'll be able to put things together, put your exercises, movements, intents, and all of that in, which I think is pretty valuable. Okay, that's all I got. Is there any questions or programming questions or things of interest that you're wondering about? Cool. If no one's got anything, I appreciate you guys being here tonight. If you have any questions on programming or training or how to set up what you're doing, just shoot me a message. And for those of you that are watching it, remember to shoot me a message in the Discord. This is 7:41, and I will shoot you over the template that I used in this very video for you to fill in and have fun with and put together your own program. And don't forget, 1612 does offer team programs, and I'm complete transparency. These templates are very similar to the ones that I use to write the programs for 1612. Even the recovery stuff, I follow like these same guidelines. So once you have the templates, then everything else you can just focus on training. So of course, Josh, appreciate you. It's been a while. It's good to see you. Josh Gill, it's good to see you too, buddy. Glad I'm stoked for you. Let's get after it this week. And yeah, guys, thank you. Appreciate you, and we'll talk soon.